Hey everyone, let's just dive right into this explainer. Unsealed Mysteries, Deconstructing the 2026 UFO Files. We're going to start off with a mystery that sounds, well, like pure science fiction, honestly. But here's the kicker. It actually comes straight from sworn federal testimonies. Today, we are unpacking a massive, newly unsealed cache of government documents that is, absolutely for sure, going to force you to look up at the skies a little differently.
Okay, so set the scene in your mind. It's 2023 at an undisclosed location right here in America. Two federal agents are out on a totally routine operation. It's evening, everything is completely normal. Until they look up. Right there, hovering in the sky, is this round, ball-shaped object, and it's glowing with this intense orange color. They literally have no idea what it is. And then, after a few moments, poof, it just vanishes. Now, you might think, okay, maybe it was just a trick of the light. But it wasn't. The very next day, a completely different team of agents witnesses the exact same glowing orange orb. Then a third team sees it. Over the course of just 2 days, 3 different teams, that's 6 trained federal officers, all report identical sightings. But here is where it gets truly bizarre. These officers swore under oath that they watched as this massive orange orb began launching smaller red orbs. It's almost like a mothership deploying tiny fighter planes. Crazy, right?
What's really fascinating here is how the whole thing escalates. We move from these stationary observations in 2023 right into a physics-defying evasive maneuver just 2 years later. Get this. In 2025, a senior intelligence official takes a helicopter back to this exact same location, and sure enough, an orb is hovering right there, just above the ground. But when the military helicopter moves in to track it, the orb executes this unbelievable evasive maneuver. It instantly jumps 20 miles away in just a fraction of a second. I mean, a military helicopter simply couldn't keep up. And for 35 minutes, they just sat there and watched as this object deployed 4 to 5 more of these smaller orbs before everything went quiet again.
Now, if that were just one isolated incident, maybe, just maybe, it could be swept under the rug. But it isn't. On May 8, 2026, the U.S. Department of War completely blew the doors off this mystery by publicly releasing exactly 162 previously classified UFO files. 162! This massive release naturally kicked off a huge wave of public curiosity, and for very good reason. We're talking about FBI documents, Pentagon reports, NASA transcripts, State Department cables, and totally unprecedented photos and videos that no civilian had ever laid eyes on before.
And looking at these highlights, it just brilliantly illustrates the sheer global scope of the modern phenomena. We are not just talking about blurry dots over rural farmland anymore. According to the files, in 2023, the U.S. military over in Greece captured an object right on the ocean's surface, executing 90-degree turns while traveling at 80 miles per hour. That's a maneuver that fundamentally challenges our basic understanding of physics and inertia, and it's completely backed up by nearly 3 minutes of military infrared sensor evidence. Then, in Iraq and Syria in 2024, surveillance systems caught these ultra-high-speed flybys in weird, semi-transparent orange anomalies. Over the Indo-Pacific near Japan, a football-shaped object with bizarre projections. So you see, it's this clear, undeniable pattern of objects appearing, doing the impossible, and then just vanishing.
Encounters beyond Earth, the astronaut files. Because you see, these earthbound anomalies are really only half the story. Let's transition from our atmosphere out into the dark void of space, relying on our absolute most credible witnesses.
Back in 1965, during the flight of Gemini 7, astronaut Frank Borman radioed ground control in Houston with a phrase that genuinely sent chills down people's spines. He just said, "Bogey at 10 o'clock high." Now, bogey isn't just a random word. It's a strictly military combat term used to identify an unknown or enemy aircraft during a war. It is definitely not a word you'd expect to hear in the total vacuum of space. When ground control asked if he was maybe just looking at the spacecraft's own discarded booster, Borman confirmed, nope, he could see the booster completely separately. And later on, subsequent analysis actually confirmed that this unidentified object was a distinct third object in orbit, completely separate from any known debris.
And the plot only thickens from there, especially during the Apollo moon missions. Let's look at this timeline. In 1969, Buzz Aldrin reported seeing flashing lights right inside the cabin, along with a sparkling, laser-like light source out on the moon's surface. Later that year, Apollo 12 saw unusual particles and light flashes around their landing site. But perhaps the most astonishing one, during the final crewed moon mission, Apollo 17 in 1972, a photograph actually captured 3 distinct dots hovering above the moon in a perfect triangular formation. And you know what? Even decades later, the U.S. government's preliminary analysis still concedes that those dots from Apollo 17 could indeed be unexplained physical objects.
So here is the huge question we really have to ask ourselves. Are we actually looking at definitive signs of extraterrestrial life just zipping through our oceans, skies, and solar system? Or is the truth hidden much, much closer to home? Well, prepare yourself, because we're about to hit the mask-off moment of this explainer, where we actually start to demystify some of these unbelievable stories.
Birth of the Flying Saucer, the 1947 hysteria. To really wrap our heads around today's mysteries, we need to take a really quick historical detour back to the year that completely changed our global vocabulary forever.
Okay, so the absolutely crucial point here is this. Our entire modern visual concept of alien spacecraft is basically based on a typo. Yeah, a misunderstanding. On June 24, 1947, a private pilot named Kenneth Arnold spotted 9 shining objects flying over Washington state at just unbelievable speeds. When a reporter later asked him what they looked like, Arnold didn't say they were actually shaped like saucers. He said they moved the way a saucer would if you skipped it across the water. He was describing their bouncing movement. But you know how it goes. Newspapers misunderstood, they printed the catchy phrase, flying saucers, and boom, an entire global cultural obsession was born practically overnight.
And just 2 weeks after that, the obsession exploded into full-blown hysteria. Notice the incredible informational whiplash here. On July 8, 1947, a local farmer near Roswell, New Mexico, brought some strange debris to the local sheriff. The Roswell Army Airfield shockingly put out a press release claiming they had recovered an actual flying disc. Obviously, the world went wild, but then, the very next day, they issued a total retraction, claiming it was merely a weather balloon. This incredible visual and informational whiplash, it single-handedly gave birth to the mother of all cover-up conspiracies.
So, the government tried to quell the ensuing panic by launching Project Blue Book in 1952. Over 17 years, they investigated over 12,000 cases. Now, the vast majority of those were easily explained away as actual weather balloons, standard airplanes, or even just misidentified planets. However, look at that exact number right there, 701. That represents the cases that remained totally, completely unexplained. And those 701 mysteries, they were the lifeblood that kept the whole alien myth alive in the public consciousness for decades.
The geopolitical reality, removing the mask. Now we're getting to the really fascinating part. This is where the extraterrestrial bubble begins to burst pretty dramatically against cold, hard data. Because if you take all the sightings from the last 79 years and just plot them on a map, an undeniable pattern starts to emerge. It's like a giant puzzle coming together. In the 1950s and 60s, UFO sightings were heavily clustered around the US, the Soviet border, and Germany. Basically, the absolute epicenters of the Cold War. Fast forward to today, and the most recent sightings from the 2026 files, places like Iraq, Syria, the Indo-Pacific near Japan, they map flawlessly onto current active US military deployments. The logic here is kind of unavoidable. UFOs always seem to conveniently appear exactly where the US military has deployed its most highly advanced surveillance systems.
So, what was the real truth behind the 1947 Roswell crash? Well, it actually wasn't a weather balloon, but it wasn't aliens either. Decades later, a declassified initiative called Project Mogul revealed it was actually a highly classified U.S. spy balloon meant to monitor Soviet nuclear tests. And those alien bodies people claimed to see? Declassified reports later confirmed they were literally just military test dummies being dropped from the sky. The reality is, the U.S. government intentionally allowed the UFO myth to thrive because it provided the ultimate perfect cover story. I mean, think about it. If the public thought they were just seeing flying saucers, they wouldn't realize they were actually seeing classified advanced U.S. military aircraft tests or top-secret international espionage efforts.
And that brings us perfectly full circle back to our opening mystery. Remember that glowing orange orb launching the smaller red ones? While the files don't explicitly state what this was, military defense analysts point out that foreign adversaries, specifically China, have been developing advanced mothership drones. These things are massive surveillance platforms capable of carrying and launching hundreds of smaller drones right in midair. Suddenly, that crazy science fiction scene witnessed by those federal agents sounds a heck of a lot like highly advanced but entirely earthly foreign spy technology operating in U.S. airspace.
As we dig even deeper into this, we actually find really grounded, natural explanations for some of the most sensational sightings. That football-shaped object over Japan? Defense experts highly suspect it's a variation of a Chinese high-altitude spy balloon program, very similar to the one shot down over the US back in 2023. And what about those astronauts? Well, Neil Armstrong himself suggested the Apollo cabin flashes were probably just sunlight leaking through window covers or atomic particles like cosmic rays interacting directly with their eyes. As for Buzz Aldrin's mysterious lunar laser, Aldrin personally concluded it was most likely just the sun perfectly reflecting off a smooth, glassy lake all the way back on Earth.
Why the mystery continues, findings and motives. So if so much of this is just drones and natural phenomena, why does the mystery persist? Let's take a look at the official government conclusions and the debated political motives behind releasing these files in 2026.
Back in 2024, the U.S. Defense Department's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, also known as AARO, published a really comprehensive report investigating UFO claims from 1945 all the way to 2023. And their findings? They firmly shut the door on the extraterrestrial hypothesis. They concluded there is absolutely zero evidence of extraterrestrial technology, zero evidence of the government hiding or reverse engineering alien craft, and that the vast majority of sightings are just ordinary earthly objects. Things like drones, balloons, spy planes, and satellites.
Yet the files were released anyway, often with zero context or analysis, which of course fuels immense public speculation. Now, impartially looking at the analysis provided by our source material, it's argued that releasing these context-free files in 2026 was a calculated political move. The source asserts that this release, authorized by the Trump administration, was intentionally designed to dominate the news cycle with UFO conspiracies. The argument is that it served as a smokescreen, specifically to distract the public from political failures and the controversies surrounding the Epstein files. As the source notes, mystery thrives where transparency is absent, making it an incredibly effective tool for misdirection.
Ultimately, it's absolutely thrilling to imagine that we're being visited by advanced civilizations. I mean, it sparks a deep sense of wonder in all of us. But as this famous quote reminds us, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. While there will probably always be a handful of cases that resist immediate explanation, blurry infrared videos and context-free data drops simply aren't enough to rewrite our entire understanding of the universe. The true story of UFOs, it turns out, isn't about little green men. It's a fascinating, complex human story. It's about Cold War paranoia, cutting-edge military technology, geopolitical espionage, and our endless, deeply ingrained desire to look up at the stars and just believe. So what do you think? Is the truth out there, or is it just classified right here on Earth?